Hello there. I'm Pablo Gunner. My real name is Paul McTeague Garcia. This is a new thing that I'm doing, trying sort of. I've kind of been doing this on my TNTM the Show channel, but this is different because I'm not going to be talking that much about nerdy stuff. I have been kind of avoiding this, but I feel like it's time that I talk about real stuff that's going on. Our political spectrum here in the United States, if you can call them that, I don't feel like they're united anymore. It feels weird and gross even saying united. America, even when I say America, I go, America is an entire continent. It's connected. The whole damn continent's connected. That's America to me. And literally, I'm a very literal person. So that's the reality of it. Canada, Mexico, South America, it's all America. So that being said, people will say, well, what gives you a right to say or speak on anything political? Well, for one, I live in the United States. So I feel like if you're an American citizen, you have a right. If you're a human, you have a right to say whatever you want, as long as you don't live in a country that will murder you for your free speech. Which, can we say we even have that in the United States anymore? What gives me the right? Like I said, besides being an American, here's the deal. I have a background in, well, here, I grew up in New Mexico, spent the first few years of my life in Los Alamos, lived there, then moved to Rio Rancho and lived there most of my life. I've lived most of my life there. I live there now. Love it there. And went to high school, Rio Rancho High School. I joined the Navy. I was in the Navy for 2.5 years. I did corrections. I've worked for SCDC and GPCF, Great Plains Correctional Facility in Hinton, Oklahoma. Private prison out there for a little over a year. I worked for a group home out in Oklahoma as well for a year before that. And I did security for Albuquerque Job Corps, which no longer exists thanks to Trump and his horrible regime. Now I work at Los Alamos National Labs as armed security, and I've been doing that for 10 years in a union. And it's unionized. We're unionized. So it is a union that is works for a contractor, a subcontractor, a subcontractor. That's the way that the world, the US works now, is that it's a capitalist country, so it just sells out. I'm not a government employee. So, and same with like Great Plains Correctional Facility. Private prison should have been a government job, should have had government benefits, didn't. That's my background. And I did do one semester of college at UNM. I also did another semester for Santa Fe Community College. It was just online though, but I did have stellar grades for that one. And that was before I got this job. I was going for law enforcement degree because I was like, screw it. I'll try to get a law enforcement degree, make myself look better so I can get a law enforcement job. And then I got this, so I was like, okay, no point in continuing that. Sort of. I mean, I think education is important. I'm not sure if college is important. For example, I read this book. It's called A People's History of the United States by Howard Zinn. Now, I have a friend who she took a poli sci class. She has a degree in like screenwriting or something like that. And she said for a poli sci class, they made her read that book. I have read about half that book. I need to read the rest of it. It's a very thick, long book, but it is phenomenal. And it is one of the best books that I've ever read. As far as like history goes, you want to read a real history book, that's a real history book right there. Now, I've heard things to the contrary, but that's what I believe. Going into that, people act like what's going on isn't exactly the way that America was designed. It was. It was designed it this way. Look, here's the thing. In that book, they make you realize that the United States was created by and for rich white men. Rich white men, British, were convinced the poor people that they were getting ripped off. Mind you, they were. Like they say, taxation without representation. They weren't being represented. That is true. And all those taxes. We're getting taxed like crazy now. We ain't getting nothing for it except for wars. Don't help me none. They duped the poor into fighting this war for them because they were getting ripped off by other British. So they were like, no, 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 no. We should be the ones getting rich. We're the one that's doing the work here. They weren't doing the work. The poor people were doing the work. Because that's how the system's always worked throughout history, throughout the history of man. I've even seen things that are like, we actually get less time off and are making less money than during the medieval times. Don't know how true that is, but it seems crazy just because of like, the way that farming, the farming was and everything like that, right? Point being, that book goes into how these British people were getting ripped off, so they duped the poor people. And then even in the Revolutionary War, they weren't paying the soldiers, they were paying the officers. And then once they caught on to that, there were revolutionary wars against their own people because they're like, you better pay us or we're not going to fight for you. So they're like, oh crap, we better pay him. And it was all nepotism too. It was like, who are you going to pay? Oh yeah, the people that we know, the people that we are related to. So this country has been messed up from the get-go, and it was created to be like, oh, only if you had land could you be in government, and then those people owned the police, and those police controlled the people. So when people would rise up, which they did, they would send the sheriffs in there that they owned, and they would say, hey, you need to work, or we're going to take your leaders. And they would take the leaders. And then they would be like, all right, we're going to go get our leaders, and we're going to burn this place to the ground and kill you all. That was a great equalizer. Guns. We used guns. Everybody used guns. And that's what they did. They shoot the place up. They get their leaders out, and that was it. And they're like, all right, we're going to show up at your places. And that's what they would do.